This is from Dogs by Nature. 5 questions heading into training camp for the Browns. Number 1, when will Amari Cooper report to camp? Will there be any holdout? Didn't show up at minicamp. Number 2, what combination of guys is best on the offensive line? We'll do the third one here as well. How different will the revamped offensive line look? So let's handle those 3 first. Because they kind of fit together. Cooper, I'd be surprised if they don't figure something out pretty quickly with him.
I think the thing with Coop is, look, it seems we all know what the Browns are offering. And look, if you want more money and you want a little bit more security, that's what you're going to have to do. He's not going to go the Nick Chubb route. He's not going to just come back, play out the season, and see what happens. You want it. The Browns are willing to give it to you for 1 year. And do we have to maybe get to this spot again next year? Very well, maybe. Or, it is where Cooper has to fight for, more money. That at that time, he's got something in his back pocket. It's not going to be basically a lame duck year for Amari Cooper. The Browns are willing to give him the satisfaction to make sure he's not going in here with no future money not coming. They are trying to at least take care of one aspect of it. It may not be as long as Amari wants. And again, the other thing is I just don't see Amari creating a stink. He's just never been that type of guy. He's gotten many places between Vegas, Dallas, and here. He's always been a consummate professional. I think it's going to get worked out. It just may not happen in Amari Cooper's favor.
So when we talk about the offensive line, how that looks, and the revamped offense, what do you think of those?
I think it's going to be a lot more open. And, look, we talked about this last year, and we kind of said that this team looked and appeared like they were going to gravitate away from being Nick Chubb being their top option, and it was going to be Deshaun Watson. It all made sense, certainly, what you invested, what you paid. And then there we were by week 7, week 8, and neither one of them are around anymore. And we were just kind of seeing what the Browns could, basically throw up against the wall and see what stuck week in, week out, which they did a fantastic job with. But, Ken Dorsey's influence, and I saw somewhere else somebody mentioning this, the running back highly involved in the passing game in Buffalo. James Cook was a very, very busy guy carrying the ball, catching balls out of the backfield. You bring in a guy like Naheem Hines, Jerome Ford, the former high school wide receiver, now running back. And, Jerome did a really, really good job last year. A lot of people don't want to believe it, but the role he was thrust into and how bad a situation it was when it first went down, and no Nick, and oh my God, what's his team going to do? And he saw the whole Jerome Ford package. He runs pretty well when he's got blocking in front of him. He certainly is a more productive receiver than we ever saw Nick Chubb be for this team. So that's certainly the influence there. The offensive line, it's not necessarily changes within personnel, but it's a new coach. He's going to do things differently. And I honestly think, with this team, as better and heavy as it is on the offensive line, it probably should be a good thing, because you got to every now and then you got to switch it up. You kind of got to do something a little bit different. And certainly with this new offensive line coach coming in here, it's not going to be I'm just going to come in here and do everything the way Bill did. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. It's going to be my offensive line. And it's going to give the guys a chance to basically grow a little bit, adapt, to change. And, I don't see any reason why these guys, the consummate professionals that they are, aren't going to embrace that challenge and certainly, accept it, and certainly, run with it, and hopefully get this offensive line back to the top 5 unit that we have grown accustomed to.
All right. Before I let you go, the final 2 questions of the 5. Will the team need to add another tight end during camp? And 5th, who calls the plays? So it'll be interesting to see. I'm Jeff, people get aggravated with me. I don't really, if Kevin Stefanski feels like he should call the plays, I'm fine with that. I have no issue with him as a play caller at all. If he thinks Ken Dorsey should call the plays, okay, that'd be fine too.
Well, the thing with the play calling, though, is if these are our 2 options, one of them, with 5 quarterbacks last year, led his team to the playoffs, calling plays. Unfortunately, the other guy was fired from his job. So I don't, and look, for 4 years now, Kevin Stefanski has been the play caller for this franchise. Why in the world do we think this is going to change now? Maybe it does. Maybe it does change. I'm not necessarily sure I see it. And if you just want to get down to the bare, and the tax of it, again, Kevin Stefanski went to the playoffs last year, calling the plays for this team, and unfortunately, Ken Dorsey was dismissed from the position he had last year. It kind of tells me that maybe I think it's going to be Kevin Stefanski.
Relative to tight end, right now there's nobody out there that it is. So I think that's a position you look and you see who's available come cut down day.
Well, that also could be one of these. Look, the Browns are going to have several players that they're not going to be able to keep. That if they expose to the waiver wire, they're going to go on to another destination. So it can be one of these ones where it's, hey, you're not going to be able to keep that tight end. I can't keep this 6th or 7th cornerback on my roster. So as opposed to fighting through all of this, and the Browns obviously are going to be a little bit further down the waiver wire than we had been accustomed to at times. And it might be one of those, hey, well, I can't keep this guy. You can't keep that guy. Let's help each other out. Phone call to Minnesota where, obviously they have a working relationship. And maybe, you find a tight end that way. Yes, I am still concerned about the tight end position. It could just be a factor of, David is so great. They just feel that maybe there's, if something were to happen to him, there is no replacing him, which certainly could make some sense. But yeah, I'd feel a little bit better if there was a little bit more in that room. I'm surprised they didn't draft one. I'm actually surprised they didn't draft one the year before. I personally would have just kept Harrison Bryant around for the money he was making. Was never a guy that was highly thought of, but was a guy that did make plays from time to time. But again, this team is pretty deep in a lot of areas, and we always have a lot of faith in the work that certainly Andrew Berry does. So, if it's an issue, I'm sure Andrew Berry will find some time and find some way to get it resolved before we start kickoff week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys.